Rev up your engines!
Check it out. They're just showing the new 2023 Prius here in the United States. It is the best looking Prius. Check it out. It's a good looking car. They made the horsepower so much more. They put in a 2-liter engine. They put in a bigger battery. So now it produces 220 horsepower. And here's the difference. The old Prius going 0 to 60, 10 seconds. But the new 2023, it does it in 6.7 seconds. That's a heck of a lot faster. They'll have a lot more acceleration. They're not ugly like they used to be. They got kind of a Mazda-esque look. You know, the new Mazdas, Zoom ones, are good-looking cars. There's no arguing that. And, of course, Toyota owns a bunch of Mazda now, so I'm sure they're sharing their technology. But the point is now they have 220 horsepower. They look good, and with the bigger battery, they can go twice as far on electricity alone. And you can drive a certain amount, maybe 38, 39 miles on electricity alone. The interesting thing was they got all that power, but they still get the same gas mileage. It's amazing what these guys come up with technology, I gotta say. All that more horsepower, much faster, but it still manages to get the same gas mileage. But of course, that's in the rating. If you're always going 0 to 60 as fast as it can, you're not going to get good gas mileage. That's only if you drive conservatively. If you drive your new 220 horsepower one, the same as you did the old one that has about 60% as much power, yeah, you're going to get good gas mileage. But if you drive it to its extreme, you're going to get worse gas mileage. The faster you go, the worse the gas mileage. That's just the way it works with machines. Dr. MDX Scotty, what's your opinion of the MDX 10-speed tranny versus the MDX 9-speed transmission? From my experience, I like the 9-speed better than the 10-speed. It seems to have held up over time. Sometimes too many gears is too many. It doesn't get that much better gas mileage adding that extra gear, 10 versus 9. It just adds a level of complexity that when they do break, and Acuras, when they age and their transmissions break, it costs a fortune to rebuild them. I've had customers with Acuras that their transmissions went out. Some of them spent $7,500, $8,500 having them done over. So it's sometimes better to make it a little simpler than to keep making it more and more complex. Just like a guy the other day sent me, I think he said, I bought a washing machine and it's got Bluetooth and it broke after a year. The old washing machines didn't have Bluetooth. They didn't talk to you and they lasted longer. Sometimes you don't need all that technology. Omar says, Scotty, I purchased a 2016 Ford Fusion, 2.5 liter, has 65,000 miles. Should I change the tranny fluid? Yes. If I were you, I would change it in the filter right now. On that particular vehicle, because Ford's had a problem with their transmission, I would probably change it every 30, 35,000 miles. But 65 isn't too much. Now, if it was 165 and you didn't know the history, I'd say don't, because it might start slipping. But 65, yes. Change the filter and the fluid. Use the same original fluid because you don't want to mix fluids. Get the same factory fluid. It doesn't cost all that much more. When you drain it and fill it back up, there's still more than half of it inside the torque converter and trans. You don't want to mix different kinds of fluids, so use the factory fluid. DB says, what does IVTEC stand for in a Honda Accord? Okay, variable valve timing started. Basically, Honda was the first real one to get into it heavy. I believe Alfa Romeo or somebody had the first one, but it was Italian and it broke all the time. Honda makes very good variable valve timing. And the I stands for intelligent because it's all computer controlled. And what it does is it allows the valves to have different timing and opening. When you want to accelerate really fast, it's like you have a racing cam. It opens them up more. If you're just cruising along, it doesn't as much, so you get better gas mileage. So it's like having two different engines in the same car. Now, back in the day when I was a kid, guys would say put hot cam in, one that lifts it a bunch, and they went really good fast. But then when they idled, they blum, 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 and they backfire and stuff. If you're old enough to know that, you'd see them rumbling and backfire, and they go like stink at high speeds, but at low speeds, they stunk. They backfire, they smell, they make noise. But today, the computers can do it in the same engine. They can make it go really high lift at high speeds and acceleration and low lift when you don't want to. Honda has a very good system. Honda makes excellent engines, and theirs is one of the better ones out there. Holly says, Scotty, how do you diagnose a car running lean with worse than normal gas mileage? Running lean means there's either too much air or not enough fuel. And the way you diagnose it, you get a good scan tool, and it gives all that data. You get short-term fuel trim, long-term fuel trim. It's a V6. It'll show one side versus the other. So if you see one side is running lean, but the other isn't running very lean, because you get all that data, then you know the one that's running lean, we got to check that out. Now, often it's a vacuum leak. So if one side's lean and the other isn't, check that side that's running lean for vacuum leaks. I use a smoke machine. You can make one. You can buy them cheaply enough. Or you can do stuff like get a can of carburetor spray cleaner and you spray it with it running, and when you get to the leak, the engine starts sucking the carburetor cleaner fluid in, and it'll start idling weird, and then you know it's in there. You can look for a leaking vacuum hose or a bad gasket that when you spray it where that gasket is broken, it'll start going crazy. That's the easiest way to do it. Now, you can run lean. Let's say the whole car is running lean, both banks. That can be a clogged fuel filter. It can be a weak fuel pump. And of course, you can test those with a pressure gauge. Legend says, Scotty, what do you think of Rust-Oleum undercoating spray? Rust-Oleum makes excellent products. The only thing is, most cars today are well made, and they don't need it because they're done at the factory. Let's take Toyotas. My mother had a 97 Corolla in Buffalo, and it didn't rust because they built it correctly. It had the coating on it, stayed on. Now, if you have a car that's all rusty and you start spraying Rust-Oleum spray, that won't really help it because it's already rusted. It more or less seals the rust in, and then it still rusts from the inside out, and it'll fall apart. If you do have a car like a Toyota that was coated good, but you scraped on a speed bump or something, crawl under, jack the car up, put on jack stands right, and you see bare metal, yeah, then spray the Rust-Oleum spray on it. That's great. It'll cover the bare metal, because even the Toyota, if you scrape it up by running over a speed bump or something, then it'll be bare metal, it'll start to rust. And for that, it's excellent. Capel says, Scotty, I got a Honda Accord with a 2.4 liter. Have a rattling noise on cold start. Will it affect the engine? A lot of times, that is the timing chain tensioner is kind of dirty, carboned up, and it's got to build up enough oil pressure to push the chain so then it stops rattling. Now, after you start it and run it for a short period of time, the rattling goes away. That's probably what it is. In that case, use my friend Bernie's stuff. He's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He makes an engine flush. You put it in the oil. You rev it up to about 2,000 RPM for 20-25 minutes with a fan in front of your car so it doesn't overheat. Then you change the oil and filter. And I have seen that. Clean the carbon off of the rods for the tensioner. And then they don't do it anymore. Now, if you did that and it still did it, that would mean that your timing chain is worn and you're going to have to do some serious work eventually. But as long as it goes away after you start it, I've seen people drive them years that way because it's only upon startup. Now, if it rattles all the time when you come to a stop, yeah, you got a problem and you're going to have to get a new timing chain tensioner, maybe to rebuild the engine. Joe Barham says, Scotty, what do you think of the new Hyundai Palisade? Well, they have all kinds of bells and whistles, but they're Korean cars. And Korean cars have such a bad history of engine problems, transmission problems, fuel injection problems, that I would not buy one. I don't care. Because every year they always say, oh yeah, we're better, we fixed all our problems. And then 2 or 3 years later, they're recalling the engines because they explode, the transmissions because they explode. I had a customer with one, the engine blew up when it had 18,000 miles. I've seen them when the engine blew up when they had 45,000 miles. Unheard of in a Toyota or Honda, right? I just would not buy one because I don't trust their quality control. Their quality control in the Korean cars is just not all that great. Now, when somebody makes a better vehicle and it holds up, maybe at 5-6 years from now, I'll see they don't have any problems, and I'd say, well, the Palisades, well, I haven't found any problems with them in the last 5 years. Always wait anyways, even if it was a Toyota. We'd have been out a few years, see if they got any problems. Don't be a guinea pig for the companies. Well, Canadian Pacific Railways using a hydrogen fuel cell train. They finally got one up and running. They're using it for a regular revenue run where they're getting paid and trying it out. Which to me makes sense because batteries weigh a bunch. They cost a ton of money. Well, these trains are using hydrogen fuel cell and hydrogen to make electricity, and then it runs the trains on the electricity. Realize all those diesel trains you see are actually electric trains. The diesel motors just run giant generators. So it only makes sense to use hydrogen fuel cells with these things. And now they're actually doing it on the road, seeing if it works okay. And they're trying it in Western Canada. They're going through the Rockies. So they're giving it a good test, going up, down. Now, other companies, Wabtrek and Progress Rail, what they're doing is they have battery-powered locomotives that are hybrids. Now, as I said, you can't run a giant train just on batteries. They weigh too much. It would take so long to recharge them. So what those are is hybrids, just like a Prius. They've got electric batteries, but they've also got diesel engines. When they're going on their long trips, they run out of electricity, they're going to be running it on diesel. The fuel cell one is running just on fuel cell, taking hydrogen, turning it into electricity, then running the motors. In Alberta, which is the big petrochemical hub of Canada, they're starting to make hydrogen there. Realize that oil is nothing but hydrogen and carbon and different things. So there's a lot of hydrogen in there. You just have to get it out. The problem is today, they're kind of a dirty process. They call it dirty hydrogen. That it's taking hydrogen from petrochemicals, not taking it using solar panels and splitting water and stuff, which of course is H2O, which is hydrogen and oxygen. And if they actually work out, hey, who knows? It makes a lot more sense than having batteries. Batteries cost too much money. They weigh too much. They got to pull themselves. Hydrogen makes a lot more sense. Maybe it'll be a viable process. They can figure out how to make the hydrogen green and then run the trains using hydrogen fuel cells instead of all the money for all those expensive batteries that are going to wear out. And then you got to buy new batteries, and it just goes down the line. And the more power you need, the bigger the batteries. That means it weighs more. Then they have to have even bigger batteries to pull that and bigger motors. Fuel cells aren't that way. You got the fuel cell that generates the electricity. The only thing it needs is hydrogen. It doesn't need really giant, heavy batteries. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.